Hey Push, this is our last module of the week. Hey Push, this is our last module of the week. This is module 8. We're going to review some of our content from period 6, and then we're going to do some more DBQ prep for your DBQ on May 15th. So we're going to start off right here with the do now. So what you're asked to do here in the do now was to look at this political cartoon and analyze it as if you were writing a DBQ on this prompt. So when you look at this prompt, guys, this should remind you, oh yeah, the populists, what they were all about. Now you look here and it says 1889. So the populists aren't like full in yet, but this is like what they're about to do. So my best guess would be if someone was writing a DBQ on this prompt, they would say the populists did not mark a large turning point in U.S. economy or politics because they never got elected. None of them ever became presidents. Now, they did get elected in some of the states, and they did have an impact, and the Democrats and Republicans did actually take some of their ideas, but they never actually got elected. And one thing you could use this cartoon to say is this idea of the robber barons was around before the populists were around. And it was around because the Republicans, remember, had given these companies all these land grants, so they built the Transcontinental Railroad. So these companies became monopolies, became trusts. You got people like Rockefeller, Morgan, Carnegie became super powerful. And then the perception was that farmers, small businessmen had to give all of their money to them, just like peasants in the Middle Ages. So SFI you could use Transcontinental Railroad. You could use the tariffs that the Republicans did. You could use vertical integration, horizontal integration, trusts, laissez-faire. And all of these things are just showing all of this stuff was around before the populists. And the populists tried to address it, kind of failed to address it. But some of their ideas got taken up by the progressives in the 1910s. People like Teddy Roosevelt, Taft, and Wilson. So you kind of have a sense of that. Let's move down here and we're going to go on to the direct instruction. So we did that do now just to get us again back into this idea of analyzing documents. On the DBQ on May 15th, you will be analyzing the 5 documents that will be making up the DBQ, and you'll have to analyze them and write an entire essay in 45 minutes. 5 documents, 45 minutes, 10 possible points on the rubric. So this could be a struggle for us because sometimes we run out of time. And so what we're practicing here is going to be analyzing documents, organizing documents, and then removing a document. And this is because on the one that we do on May 15th, we might be removing one of the documents and we could still get full credit. Even if we did 4 out of the 5 documents, we can get 10 points from 4 out of the 5 documents. Now, the 4 we do have to be perfect. And that's why I would sometimes recommend doing all 5, because you might have gotten one of them wrong. And if you did 5, you're for sure. But if you don't have enough time, that's even worse. So it's better to have 4 perfect ones than 5 crappy ones. And it's best to have 5 perfect ones, and then the grader decides, one of yours wasn't that great. So we're going to take a look here. We're going to do the same thing as we did in the do now. And here, though, I'm actually going to write some of this stuff out. You're going to be choosing a document that you think best fits to analyze. You're going to be choosing one that best fits to go with the best one. So it's like best, better, and then the one you're taking out is worst. It's the one you're going to remove. It's the one you don't understand the most. You couldn't find SFIs for. Your sheet did not help you out with this. Your study guide did not help you out with it. That's going to be the one you're going to remove. So let me show you how this works. Analyze. So I'm going to look at document A, B, and C, and I'm looking for a document that I feel like I can best analyze, to tie back to the prompt, to give historical context for, and just basically explain them most. When I look at these three documents, I always like, hey, if I could do the picture and I get what the picture's about, that's almost always the best one because it's going to be the fastest. And when I look at this one, Document C, National American Women's Suffrage Organization. Oh man, that is literally on my SFI sheet. If it's not only, it could be on your study guide. And what was that? Well, that was the group that said we have to have the right to vote now, and kept pushing and pushing and pushing for the right to vote. And that one is from 1916. And let's look here. If we go back to that prompt, we're looking for how did economic, political developments, as well as assumptions about the nature of women, change. And we talked about this on Wednesday, but what we're saying is there was a huge change. And so this political cartoon actually is really good because let's look at it. National American Women's Suffrage Association, the Church Vote Disenfranchised, Headquarters Newsletter, 1916. And this guy, he says, and if I can't quite see it, I would zoom in here. Let's see, I'm just going to show you guys. Oh, boom. I can zoom in here a little bit. And this guy is saying, let them sing and pray. We got the votes and make the laws. Okay, so this is actually really interesting, and it goes back to our prompt here. Women's place changed because they always were seen as the conscience of the country. And this goes all the way back to the Second Great Awakening, period 4. And guys, we're going to get there before the prompt. I think that's where the DBQ is going to come from. I think it's going to come from period 4, 1800 to 1848. But they're always seen as the conscience, but they don't have power. And this cartoon is directly addressing that. So analyze. This cartoon is saying, right, we're going to go to this prompt. And remember, we said with this prompt that women's role changed dramatically. And so we're going to say one of the ways that their roles or the nature of women changed dramatically was that women began to recognize that they needed more power than just being the conscience to actually make changes. Economic systems such as industrialization had given them more power in the progressive era, and politics had more often included the right to vote, but people still did not take them fully seriously. Now, when I think about a really specific SFI, I could say feminists in the 1910s began to directly challenge this, as in Doc C. This doc, and then I'm going to use purpose, criticizes the role of women as just the conscience. Going to church and trying to change people's minds. In the cartoon, men still have the power and are making fun of typical progressive religious women. Okay, this is getting pretty dang close. Let me look up here and make sure I got everything I need. I got audience purpose point of view. I gave a bunch of historical context, and I tied back to the prompt. Okay, cool. Now, I got to choose another document real quick that is going to be the best one to fit in next to document A. And I already read these just to tell you guys. And when I looked at these, document A was I'm going to go back. I used document C and analyze. I need to go to another one. And when I look here, man, document A is a Supreme Court decision. That is hard to read. I'm actually just going to go to remove right now. The Supreme Court decision is hard to read and understand. Now, on our SFI sheet, Mueller versus Oregon, by the way, guys, is on our SFI sheet. And when I look up on our sheet, on our term sheet, what I see is that Mueller versus Oregon was basically where we were able to change working hours for everyone, right? By saying like women are weaker, basically, and if you see it in here, it says they're weaker. And if you can pass these child labor laws, and you can pass these laws to limit the hours of all workers because women are weaker. So not a great law, not a great decision because it rests on this idea of women being weaker, but important for workers because now workers can actually get like minimum wage laws passed, 40-hour work week laws passed through the Mueller versus Oregon. So this is actually kind of a step back for women, and it would be a weird one to fit in next to document A. Now, if we look at document B, oh, boom. This one actually totally fits in with document A or document C because this is another example. So another example of the idea of conscience not being enough and voting required comes from document B. If we look at the author of document B, it is Jane Addams. Jane Addams is the founder of social work and of settlement houses. But she is saying that these aren't enough unless you change the laws. Now, I'm not going to get deep into analysis here. I'm just going to put ... And the reason is because I already organized it to the one that I analyzed. So guys, please don't, for organize, write a ton. You don't have to write as much as the top one. You just have to tie it in with the next one. You have to say, oh, these two are connected. And when you write your DBQs, guys, it's really important to make that little transition between documents and then go deeper, right? But like without that transition, a lot of times I can see us doing lots of extra work, recontextualizing documents, doing lots of extra stuff. We don't have to always recontextualize if the two documents are related. And I can imagine, especially on our DBQ, we can have one big paragraph with two documents and another big paragraph with the other two documents, and boom, we are done. 45 minutes are up, and we are headed towards trying to get 10 points on that DBQ. 2 paragraphs, right? But the big thing is we have to choose the right documents, and that's what this thing is telling me to do, okay? So I have my analyze, I have my organize, and I have my remove. And with the remove, I'm just going to add one more sentence here. It's hard to read and understand, and when I do understand it, I see that it actually sets women back and thus isn't related to document A. It is keeping women in their old nature or role based on politics. Okay, cool. Wrapped up. So, what are you guys doing? You're going to do exactly what I just showed you here, but you're going to do it down here with these new prompts and documents. And once you are finished, guys, you are going to submit this to Classroom. read this part down here. Very important. You are writing a DBQ on one of these prompts or a very similar prompt next week.